The Satanists by Poochigian. Though vague as vandals in studded hoodies and camouflage pants, we were congregants, one girl, one boy, hunkered, with candles and all the goodies demons enjoy, in the hopefully axed and totally scary dead lot next to the cemetery. We dug a hole like a mixing bowl and dumped in honey, milk and wine, then, for the money, blood of swine. Ad me veni. You out there? I threw in a penny to cover the fare. Teenage heathen, we panted to breathe in a whiff of a world averse to the creeds the phonies espoused. Abandon's world through the waist-high weeds. We felt we were near it, we were aroused. And, though no spirit pricked up my hair or waggled your tongue, we will always share what was desperately something, if not quite love, and the glory of this crazy dumb thing we did when young. One of the things I love the most about Aaron's poetry is how seamlessly he mixes common everyday language, references to classical figure, classical themes, obscure, sometimes occult elements and tropes, and fuses these languages so naturally within what is a fairly rigorous form to create a truly compelling musicality. There's a sense of rhythm to his poetry that I just find really compelling and that goes together so well with how immediate his poems are. I've been reading the poems in American Divine, his latest collection, a few times now, and these are definitely the kinds of poems where the first time I read them through, I think I got everything. I think I completely understood the small gem that he's created. The second time through, I realized that maybe there's some hidden layers there that I'd missed the first time. And then from the third time onward, I truly start grasping all of the complexities of his references, of his linguistic games, the way the rhythm of the poem, the structure of the poem is married to the theme included in it. And with these ulterior readings, I start digging deeper and deeper into the true stuff of revelation that's always contained in even the most deceptively simple of Aaron's poems. Being primarily a fiction reader, it's no surprise, definitely not to myself, that the poems of his I tend to prefer are those, a bit like the Satanists, which I just read, that are almost micro-stories, almost distill an entire plot, an entire narrative into the fundamental stuff that composes it, namely the way this event, the way this peculiar moment of revelation or fear or disappointment, disillusionment has come to alter the life of its protagonists, of the people who lived through it. As I said, Aaron is very well versed in classical themes. He is primarily a classicist, and his translation of Jason and the Argonauts was a book I appreciated immensely, way more than I expected a few years back. But what I appreciate so much in his poems is that he tends to mix these high references. In the Satanists, for instance, these references to demonology and the world of the occult. Not to talk about grandiose themes about the end of the world, about revolution and political turmoil. He tends to use these references to talk about what are, at the end of the day, very quotidian moments. A couple of kids playing around in an empty lot next to a cemetery, for instance, and experiencing the pangs of what is maybe not quite love, but definitely affection and youthful enthusiasm for life. This mixture of supposed high and low themes, just as the mixture of common language and complex, specialist, archaic words in Aaron's poems, gives me an immense sense of appreciation for language and life, if there even is a distinction between the two. Reading Aaron's poems always makes me incredibly enthusiastic for the beauty and the astounding complexity of human experiences, of emotions, of interpersonal relationships, of all the things that make up our life. I've said that he uses these classical references often to talk about quotidian events rather than, say, political turmoil. But that doesn't mean that he shies away from political turmoil. And American Divine is very much a political collection. It's a collection that states its American nature from the very title, and which is written at a time of tremendous crisis in American life, in American society. When I last met Aaron in person, we were talking about the great animosity in American politics in the present time. We're talking about, will Trump be re-elected, will he not? And even though Trump's no longer in the picture for now, it doesn't really feel like America has moved on necessarily from the great conflict, the great social conflict of those years. Aaron's poems capture that. Aaron's poems are inevitably written at a time of great distress, a time of ecological disaster, a time that feels very much like the end of time in the worst possible way. But they tackle these themes not through desperation, but through a great desire for hope, for rebelliousness, for taking a stand against all this bullshit, for facing up to the expectations of the time and being able to be a good human in such a difficult, such a crazy world. Not all of these poems where politics are tackled are uplifting and enthusiastic. Some of them deal with the disappointment and immense tiredness of having to be a rebel in such times all the time. But they are still relatable, and they're still incredibly uplifting for people like I hope you and me are, who feel like there is much in today's world worth fighting for and worth fighting against. I've been referring to him via his first name throughout the video because, as I mentioned, I do know Aaron personally, but please believe me when I say that it's not just this personal connection that compels me to absolutely recommend American Divine. If you read poetry, you will find immense nourishment and insight in the pages of the collection. I'm gonna link in the description box a couple more poems that Aaron published in the Paris review, and I'm gonna end the video by reading another poem from the collection that I truly love. This poem is called For All of Death. 40 approached me like a last exam. I passed and, whoa now, what was in the distance is dim and clinical, and where I am. The coughing in the offing has found my insides out, and rugged is the shout I launch into the far side of existence. For all of death, for all his kidskin glove is reaching toward me from the big above, I do resolve, like this is New Year's Eve, to start afresh. From now on, I believe in second chances, an uplifting grave. To catch the difference of these, conceive. Among the trees where blackbirds live, to grieve like failures over disappointed love, there is a fluttering and, whoosh, a Dovic sign meant rising. Hope is of the brave. Thank you for listening. That's all I have.